Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Listen, I am so excited tonight as this is the first official podcast show that we call the Up My People podcast. This is so exciting. This is a new venture. This is a new road to travel. And this podcast, we hope, will be a tremendous blessing to the people of God, to those that just have an everyday walk with Christ, to those that may not even know Christ. This is a tremendous, tremendous service that we want to bring to the Lord's people. We are so excited to be here. I notice you know that I just said we. There's someone that is with me tonight, and I'll introduce him to you in just a second. My name is Doug Brooks. I am the assistant pastor of the Greater Minded Church here in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're under the leadership of my partner and my friend and my senior pastor, Dr. Bill Adkins, who will be with us very shortly. We're here tonight on this first official show. I believe this is going to be special because we're talking about a special individual tonight. We're talking about the late, great Rev.Jessie Jackson, who is a global icon, who has just had this weekend a festival of activities, just a loaded programs everywhere, highlighting and, of course, bringing reverence to his life as he so deserves. We are so glad that we have this chance to get this thing really started and talking about it from our perspective, of course. First of all, before we even bring my pastor in and go ahead and get really going with what we want to talk about tonight, I want all of you that will see this, I need all of you to join, number one, our YouTube channel. It is the Up My People podcast. You will see that on YouTube. You search out and type in Up My People podcast. You should see our picture there. I need you guys to subscribe to that, number one. And then right next to the subscribe button, there's a bell there. I need you to tap that, and then push all. That means whenever we go live, you will be able to see us live. But that's not it. Listen, we also have a Facebook page that I need all of you to join. The Facebook page is, of course, again, Up My People. That's to go search that out on Facebook, and there, just join that, follow it, and you will be fine. There's one more platform that you will hear about because we're going to do this very, very big. Go to www.podbean.com. www.podbean.com. We're there live right now as we speak. We are here live right now on Podbean.com. Podbean, search out, of course, Up My People podcast. Follow that there. On that platform, we will have the chance to put this podcast on every platform. When I say every platform, I'm talking about iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where you may have podcasts, we'll be able to be there as well. So we're really trying to go and do something very big here. I hope that you will support us with this effort that we will try to bring to the Lord's people. Without any further ado, I want to introduce everybody. Before I do that, hey, everybody, I see everybody. Hello, everybody in the chat. Please stay engaged in the chat. Do something. Clap your hands. Say hello to us. We see all of you there. Glad to see our First Lady. Our First Lady, Linda Kerr Adkins, is in the building. Hello, Latara. I see all of you. Debbie. Hello, Monisha, Ralph, Cabrin. I see all of you. Thank God. Hey, Gary, my brother, Minister Bryant. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for popping in on us. Listen, This show would not be complete. Pastor Jackson, I see you, man. Listen, everybody share. Everybody share. Thank all of you for coming on. Before we move, this podcast would not be complete without the man, no question about it. A legendary figure in his own right. No question. The legendary, a man who has walked the walk, he's talked the talk, he's marched on behalf of African Americans. He marched with Jesse Jackson. He worked with Jesse Jackson. He's conversated with Jesse Jackson. And who better that can help us understand the life of Jesse Jackson other than, of course, our pastor, my pastor, the one and only Dr. Bill Adkins. And we welcome him now, and we'll go further under his leadership.
Thank you so much. Thank you indeed. Thank you indeed. You know, no, Bishop, I want to tell you something. When they start calling you legendary, that actually means you're getting old.
You're a legend, the living legend. Does that make it better?
Yeah, well, okay, living legend might help out a little bit. But
okay, I'm sorry.
I've noticed everywhere I go nowadays, they say legendary, and that kind of translates to old. But you know.
Forgive me, I didn't mean to sound like that.
Oh no problem, no harm, no foul, not at all. Look, listen, we are so excited about this podcast because this is just another technological tool that God gave us to get a word out. And our job here is we're not be preaching here. We're two preachers here, but we're not coming here to preach. We're coming here to discuss. We're coming here to share information. We're coming here to entertain. We're coming here to inform. We're coming here to teach. Yes. We hope to do all of those things with this podcast. And certainly I'm excited about it because Jesse, as I call him, the Rev.Jessie Jackson, was someone that I knew quite well and could call a friend and had worked with him for so long. And I had to do something. We talked about him in church, of course, on Sunday, the last 2 Sundays I think we have. But certainly we want to remember him for all the good that he did. And I hope in this conversation this evening I can share some light on him. Especially his Memphis connection. He had a very strong Memphis connection. And I'll talk about that. But right now, Bishop, we're just ready to go. And I want to say also hello to everybody that's on there. I'm looking at you on there. Corintha Green, God bless you. Thank you for being with us. Debbie. Hey, Debbie. Josie, Chanel, Muse, Rhonda, Hussey, Gary, Brian. How you doing? People just keep coming on in. Tell everybody else we're here. And what we need you to do is, as Bishop said, we need you to subscribe. That's important because the more we subscribe, the more platforms we can get on. So you need to subscribe to us. There's a bell you need to ring that bell so you know that that will notify you when we're coming in with special programs or whatever. So please do that. So Bishop, how do you want me to start this thing up? How you want us to start?
Well, tell us exactly, Apostle. Really, I believe that your experiences personally with Reverend Jackson probably would help hear from a different perspective. You have your stories, and you actually know some of the beginnings of some of the programs that he started. So why don't you just help us out with that, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll be glad to do that. I met Jesse Jackson actually around 1978. 79 with Operation Push. The Reverend Samuel Billy Cowles, the pastor of Monumental Baptist Church, a native Chicagoan. Billy Cowles was, of course, very involved in the civil rights movement and actions in Chicago and became very much involved with the Reverend Jesse Jackson in Operation Breadbasket. That was the first thing that started in Chicago. Operation Breadbasket. Actually, Martin and Ralph Abernathy sent Jesse to Chicago to head Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, feeding people and monitoring programs for that. That's how Jesse got to Chicago. And the Reverend Samuel Billy Cowles was there. Now, Samuel Billy Cowles comes to Memphis to pastor the Monumental Baptist Church. And in doing that, he brings his activism to the city of Memphis as one of our leaders in the movement here in Memphis, and uniquely brought Operation Push to Memphis. Operation Breadbasket segued eventually into Operation Push. It went from the SCLC to Operation Breadbasket to push People United to Save Humanity. Now, what was interesting about it, the way I really met him was WLOK Radio, owned by Art Gilliam. WLOK was the first black-owned radio station in Memphis, and Art Gilliam was very in tune to civic matters, especially in the black community. So what he did was every Saturday, the Operation Push meeting that would be held at Monumental Baptist Church was broadcast live on WLOK. Art Gilliam deserves a lot of credit for that, folks, a lot of credit. The whole program, we started at 9 o'clock. Sometimes we wouldn't finish until 1. No commercials. We would just be on because Art Gilliam made it a point that we shared the message of Operation Push on radio live. Now that's how it started. Now, Lasimba Gray, the Reverend Dr. Leo Lasimba Gray, and myself were, of course, friends. We'd been golf buddies for years, but we were also together actively engaged in the movement here in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
We became, I guess, what you could call lieutenants of Reverend Samuel Billy Kyles. Reverend Kyles took me and Lasimba under his wing, and of course, we functioned with Push in Memphis, dealing with many different issues here in the city, fighting battles that needed to be fought, doing things that had to be done. And we were under the mentorship of Samuel Billy Kyles. So by knowing Samuel Billy Kyles, we met Jesse Jackson because he would come to Memphis often. In fact, you could say that Memphis was almost the second home of Operation Push because Reverend Jackson came to Memphis so often. I mean, at least almost once a month at times. He would be in Memphis and around Memphis or the area, the Mississippi area, whatever. But he would be here. So that's how I first met him. And we later, of course, began to work in various programs through the years. So many programs, I can't even name them, maybe just so many things that we were involved in according to situation that existed across the country, various boycotts that was led by Reverend Jackson to gain rights, and particularly the boycott against Anheuser-Busch. I don't know, many of you may not remember that, but he led one of the largest boycotts against Anheuser-Busch, which dropped beer sales down significantly to the degree that Anheuser-Busch just raised up their hands and surrendered and said, Reverend Jackson, okay, what do you want us to do? And Anheuser-Busch became a very prominent supporter of Operation Push and programs in the Chicago area because of the Reverend Jessie Jackson's involvement, which started out as a boycott. And of course, it worked into a wonderful, workable program that developed in such a great way. Now, I got a couple of pictures here. In many years, we marched together, Jesse, in I believe it was the 1985, this one, 1985 commemoration of Dr. King. Now, let me tell you who's in that picture to give you an idea. Way to the left over there in sunglasses is Chef Wilburn, who actually was the orchestrator, engineer of the election of our first black mayor, Willie Harrington, with the People's Political Party there. In that dashiki, 2 people over, forgive me by knowing that gentleman who's next to Chef Wilburn. But the next person is Washington. The mayor of Washington, Marion Barry, rather, the mayor of Washington, D.C. My tongue's tied up. Marion Barry, of course, a Memphian, a graduate of Lemoyne College, became the mayor of Washington, D.C. That's Marion Barry there. Of course, when you come down, forgive me, I don't remember who those people are, but the person on Jesse's right is the Samuel Billy Kyles, Reverend Samuel Billy Kyles. On Jesse's left is me. And then next to me is the late Myron Lowry, city councilman, who we just lost just a little while back. And then on that side is Isaac Hayes. That was, I believe, 1985, I believe, that we were commemorating the life of Dr. King. It was a big year for us to commemorate him that year. And we marched down Front Street. I believe we were on Front Street there. It was a large gathering. I don't know how many thousands of people, but it was at least a couple thousand for sure that made that march. But we led that march. So that was a very moving historical thing for me, for us to do at that time. And then Linda and I were often with Jesse. I have a photo up there. That's I think that's around 1984, maybe. I'm looking at how young we were. I'm looking at how young all three of us were. We all three were quite young. I'm guessing around 1984, where I cannot remember for the life of me. I cannot remember, but we took numerous pictures with Jesse, and a wonderful time with him.
Let me ask you, Apostle, on that. On that picture there with you and First Lady Adkins,
Mhm.
if you said 84, had he tried at that particular time? Was he running for president?
That was his first run, was 1984.
Okay.
His first run for president was 1984. He came in third behind Walter Mondale and somebody else, I can't remember who it was, in the Democratic primary. But that was his first run for presidency. In fact, he told us he was going to run for president. And of course, people thought that was wild, but Jesse had courage. Jesse had guts. I can call him Jesse because I call him Jesse to his face. So please don't misunderstand my love and respect for him. That's just preachers will call each other by the first name all the time. But he had guts. I mean, the kind of guts that Martin King noticed about him when he came to work for the SCLC and the Montgomery bus boycott. Jesse stood out. One reason he stood out, when Jesse first came to the movement, he wore whole deck jeans all the time. And I wish somebody would bring some of those pictures up, but Jesse used to wear those whole deck jeans. Now, if you don't know what whole deck jeans are, you're really young. Whole deck jeans are the work jeans that, is one piece for the top, the chest, down to like suspenders on the top, down all the way to the ankle. With Jesse, it was a signal of the poor man, the poor farmer working. That was the garb of the working black farmer, the whole deck jeans. And Jesse wore those a lot. So it was easy to spot Jesse when he was in a crowd or whatever. But the Montgomery to Selma situation became very bad. Of course, I participated in the 1965 march with the first one, which was very civil, no problem at all. A bunch of us from school went down there for that. But the march in the Selma to Montgomery march in March, after that February march was extremely violent. That was one led by John Lewis. And of course, John was almost beaten to death in that march. That's another story for another program. But Jesse stood out as an organizer in the Montgomery, the Selma to Montgomery boycott, the bus boycott. He stood out as a great organizer that Martin King noticed him. And they lifted him from that position to a position in the SCLC, where Jesse became active in the SCLC. Now, people ask me sometimes, well, where did the SCLC come from? Well, here's some history you may not know. There was always division between the various civil rights organizations as to how we ought to combat racism in America. What would be the strategy of these organizations? You had SCLC, you had Court of Congress of Racial Equality, you had the NAACP led by Roy Wilkins, you had the Urban League, I believe it's led by Whitney Young. We had all these various organizations, and everybody had a different strategy for how to combat the civil rights situation in America, how to win the battle for our rights and justice in this country. Martin's idea was to march, as was demonstrated from the march from Selma to Montgomery, which became extremely successful, even though that second march was extremely violent. What that march did was, it was broadcast on national news. Walter Cronkite, CBS News, talked about that march and how violent it was. And it showed white people across America the pain and suffering that black people endured in the South with segregation and how horrible it was. And saw black people being bitten by dogs, beaten with nightsticks by policemen, water hosed down. They saw that, and that created a groundswell of support for the civil rights movement by people that normally wouldn't have cared anything about the civil rights movement. So interestingly enough, that was the strategy that came out of that Montgomery situation of Selma, that whole Alabama situation, Montgomery bus boycott, then on to the march from Selma to Montgomery, crossing the Pettus Bridge and all of that. That was that. So the marching became the methodology of the SCLC. Marching, demonstrating, protesting became that methodology. The NAACP didn't necessarily agree with the marching concept. They didn't lead marches at that time. They believed in the support of the Legal Defense Fund, which was the legal arm of the NAACP, which won the battle of Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, 1954, with a young black attorney by the name of Thurgood Marshall,
Wow.
who won that case and later becomes the Supreme Court Justice. So that was their method of fighting lawsuits, court battles, things like that. That's the way they thought that they would have to fight it. So that was a clash. It was a disagreement of how we should do, what we should do, how we should do it. Jessie favored the march. SCLC favored the march. And of course, you saw marches happen all across America, all across the South, all across the Midwest, even in Chicago and Detroit and Newark, New York. Marches were everywhere because that became the methodology of the SCLC. And of course, Jessie took that same mindset back to Chicago when he went back to Chicago to be over Operation Breadbasket. And of course, then the SCLC chapter there. And then, of course, to Operation Push, which became the People United to Save Humanity. So I thought I'd just share that with you. There Jessie is with that throat. That's Jessie. And another thing Jessie had was that gift. He could talk. You want to talk about rappers today? Listen, they had nothing over Jessie. Jessie could spew it out. Jessie could rhyme. Jessie could throw things out. He had a beautiful set of pipes, and then his hermeneutics were outstanding. That he knew how to sew everything together. His homiletics, his hermeneutics. That's preaching talk, y'all. He could put it all together. I mean, that man could preach and he could put it together. And that speaking power was one thing that propelled him as well. So Jessie decided to run for president in 1984, then ran again in 1988. He came in second behind, I believe it was Michael Dukakis. I think it was Dukakis in 1988 who lost miserably in the national election. But Jessie ran twice for the presidency, still keeping Operation Push alive and well. So certainly, and let's put a note on that it was Jesse Jackson who we called about the Sugar Ditch situation in Tunica, Mississippi. People may remember Sugar Ditch. It was that foul place where people's human waste was literally 20, 30 feet behind homes where poor black people lived. And the smell was horrible, horrendous, and the sanitation situation was terrible, diseased. It was horrible that human beings were living in such a condition, and they had the audacity to call it Sugar Ditch, which was such a problem there. But we got Jessie involved in that situation, and he came and went with us to Tunica, Mississippi, to Sugar Ditch. And when he saw what was there, Benny Thompson, the now black congressman from the state of Mississippi, and many other progressive Mississippians got engaged, and we forced the federal government to move in because we couldn't get the state of Mississippi to do anything, which they didn't do nothing then, and they still don't do much of nothing now for people. But the federal government moved in, and we got the Sugar Ditch cleaned up and got those people rehoused in better housing. So, and that was all probably mostly because of Jesse Jackson. So that's how it basically began, Bishop. That's how it began.
Let me take you back to you loaded us with a lot of information on this, but I want to just show how God works, how God was working in this, obviously. When you said that Reverend Jackson was involved with you and others in the days of WDIA, how many thousands of people were listening on DIA when you said that Rainbow Push, the program was from 9 to 1, I believe, sometimes, however long the program lasted, it stayed on DIA. How many thousands of people did that reach in way back then in DIA?
Well, let me correct you. The Operation Push program was actually on WLOK.
WLOK, I'm sorry. Yes,
in 1980, I left WLOK and moved to WDIA.
Yes, sir.
But the LOK broadcast was reaching a lot of people. Now, WLOK did not have the wattage of WDIA. WLOK was a local, we call it a local radio station with 1,000-watt power that covered the Memphis and Shelby County area. Now, when I went to WDIA was a regional powerhouse, a station that was 50,000 watts that broadcast all the way to the state of Louisiana. It was directional south. We could direct radio beams in those days. It was directional south from Memphis all the way down straight through Mississippi Delta all the way to New Orleans. We had people listening to WDA, listening to me on WDIA from Louisiana, deep South Mississippi, even parts of eastern Texas. It was a powerful situation. So, black radio, let me wrap this in. Black radio was such a powerful weapon in the civil rights struggle in those days, because we could share information that other facilities would not share. We shared knowledge that others would not share. We taught, we had meetings, we had conferences, we had all of these things through black radio that helped us unite together for the civil rights struggle. So I pat the back of WLOK and I pat the back of WDI both together, because that's essentially how we did it. But the Operation Push broadcast was, Bishop, I tell you what, it was the bomb, because anybody who was everybody who was anybody, I should say, would come into that meeting to speak. And we had people in and out all of the time from all across the country. It was just outstanding.
My question is, because if the radio station here in Memphis had this type of reach, to your knowledge, if you remember, were there other, I guess, regional, I guess I almost want to say black radio that had the reach as much as Memphis did? Because that is some power go from Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. I mean, that's a lot of ground to cover and put that message out. Was it that wide out in the north, in the Midwest, maybe, and elsewhere? I mean, was it like that?
Well, WDIA, to my knowledge, was the most powerful black radio station, and it was not owned black, but it was the most powerful radio station that had black programming in the country. I don't know if it was the only 50,000 watt, but it was certainly only 50,000 watt I knew about. You had other great stations all across the country that were black stations that were doing the same thing, but maybe not with the wattage and power that WDIA had. People in Memphis don't realize how powerful WDIA was. I mean, what a weapon it was for against the struggle. People in Mississippi depended on WDIA exclusively, almost, because any information that they needed to hear, they got it through WDIA. That's how we say Mount Bayou was through WDIA. The fact that Mount Bayou was sued in a lawsuit by a white woman who claimed she fell down at City Hall and was suing the city, and the city couldn't pay off the lawsuit bill, which was set up in the state of Mississippi. And of course, we raised the money to free Mount Bayou from that debt that they had to pay to that woman. But that all was apart because DIA had that kind of power, that kind of reach. And Jessie knew the power of black radio in Chicago, with WVON in Chicago as the principal black programming station in Chicago. And E. Rodney Jones was like, I guess E. Rodney Jones was kind of like what Bill Adkins was in Memphis. He opened his mouth as much as I opened my mouth. So Chicago's WVON was a powerful station as well.
Let me ask you this, because people that are here in the chat, that when you are doing a work for others, people, or you're serving people, and especially if you're doing in the name of the Lord, or you're working the ministry, Jessie, without a doubt, you heard him say this over the years about, as much you've done to the least of these. He copied the words of Jesus. You've done it also to me. And so his whole ministry, his work, was based off helping the poor. We've heard Jessie say that so many times. Reverend Jackson say that so many times. When you have that type of ministry, you can expect opposition, because when people try to, when you're doing God's work, you can expect the enemy to show up in one kind of way. And I was interested, listening right before we came on. I was talking with Pastor Adkins here, and I didn't know this, but like I said, this is why I'm grateful to have such a well of wisdom with me on this, because he can educate you rather quickly. Many of you have heard of the SCLC that Reverend Jackson started. However, what I did not know, or at least the depth of it, or how it was formed, and most importantly, why it was formed. And I was kind of shocked to hear the reason why. from the man who knows and who was there, and what I guess a little controversy came from that. Can you educate all of us, Pastor, with why this great organization that was started by Reverend Jackson? Can you explain to us how and why it came about? Y'all gonna be blown away from this.
Well, Jessie established Operation Push, but SCLC was primarily Martin and Ralph Abernathy.
Yes, sir.
At the founding of it, but Jessie was a major part of it. Well, it's simple anthropology that people have different mindsets, different thinking. People have different scheming concepts, and people have jealousies. People have all kinds of hangups. And that would affect even great organizations at the time. Let me go back to Jesus, if you don't mind. Jesus found difficulty every town he went into by not the Romans, but by the Pharisees. Yes. And what does that mean? Preachers, other preachers. It was preachers, because Jesus had a throng following him. He had no church. Jesus had a church without walls. He didn't have a temple of his own, although he owned every temple on earth, but he didn't have per se a temple on his own that he preached from. He went to the village and the hamlets, and people heard him, and they would gather in the fields and the valleys to listen to him, and they flocked to follow him. That brought about jealousy to the Pharisees and the other Hebrew scholars who did not like him. They certainly did not accept his messiahship. Watch this now, watch this. They called him an instigator. They called him a rebel rouser, that he was a militant. And he was not someone that folk ought to follow. Now, let's advance that.
Sound like a preacher I know. Militant, really? Oh, okay.
Advanced that a couple thousand years, not to this preacher, but to another by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. And when he led all of these marches across the nation, every town he went into, the many black preachers would line up against Martin. This is a part of black history that a lot of people are not aware about. And I've said this for years. Every town we ever went to, every town, even our church, as we're doing missions of caring for people, feeding people, every town we've ever gone into, we had to combat black preachers. Wow. Now, I'm not putting them down as such, but there was this notion of why are you coming to our town to help our people? And when I would say, because you're not helping them yourself. And of course, that would make them irate in the sense that I would challenge them. But the idea was that the same as it was in the time of Christ with the Pharisees, is that they don't want somebody coming into their town making them look bad because someone else is coming from the outside to do things that they should have been doing all the time themselves. Wow. It's an ashamedness. It's an embarrassment. Here in Memphis, for instance, no different here in Memphis, 23 black ministers lined up with Mayor Henry Loeb in Memphis. I will never forget this as long as I live. On photo with Mayor Henry Loeb, who was one of the absolute worst mayors this city ever had, as far as I'm concerned, for black people. 23 black ministers took a photo with Mayor Henry Loeb standing against Martin Luther King Jr. and his march for sanitation workers in Memphis. Wow. Now, and that same picture was done over and over again in other cities everywhere that Martin went. He would encounter the same situation. Okay, as I paralleled that from Jesus, the same situation there. So there's something in the DNA of all of us that just can't control the green monster that dwells and lives within many of us. We just can't control it. And the ashamedness, the embarrassment that we feel when someone else comes into our home and does for our people things that they should have been doing all the time alone. So don't sit back and think that every preacher, every church was supportive of Martin Luther King Jr. in the movement, because they were not, and they were not here in Memphis either. So please, denominations, large denominations, all fought against Dr. King. If you're a Baptist, don't get mad at me. Let me just tell you the story. The National Baptist Convention would not support the demonstrations that were going on at the time that Martin was leading, whatever. And the split came within the National Baptist Convention of preachers who thought that black ministers ought to be actively engaged and active in the civil rights struggle. Well, there are many ministers in the National Baptist Convention who said, well, we don't need to do that. God go take it. God's going to take it away. God's going to take it. We don't have to do it. But there are those of us who also say, yes, God's going to take care of it, but he may take care of it through us. God may anoint us and enable us to go and do the thing that needs to be done for him. Yeah. So the Progressive Baptist Convention, I should say, emerged from the National Baptist Convention. And now you still have those two, the Progressive Baptist Convention and the National Baptist Convention. And I'm not trying to bring up an argument about that. I'm just trying to show you the kind of situation that existed back in those days, in those times. It was just a situation that was just there. Whenever Martin was going to any city, any town, anywhere, there were always some preachers somewhere that would say, we don't want him to come here, and he would be called, guess what? Instigator, rebel rouser, outside agitator, militant, the very same things that Jesus was called. And I'll just leave that at that.
So I'm gonna carry you deep because you and I, we're not scared. So here we go. So let me ask you about as Dr. King after his death. I guess I want to take you back to the mentality in maybe the late or the early 70s or the late early 70s and the mid 70s. Mm-hmm. As the prophet, as I call him, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. passed away. Usually what happens is that when one great leader falls, the next question is who's next? And who can maybe not exactly fill the shoes, but someone that will stand out and people will follow. And Dr. King, of course, had a world that followed him. He was more than just, for Black America. A lot of white people followed him as well, even back during the time, of course, where it was not popular. But in the 70s, it seems to me, just from my old history, that it seemed to me that Reverend Jackson started to kind of jump into those shoes, and the nation, of course, Black Americans, started to follow him, and to the point, obviously, where he could run for president in the 80s. Can you tell me, if you can recall, maybe some of the, as you just said, about the crab mentality of Black preachers who became jealous of Reverend Jackson and his elevation, I guess, even to a higher level of status? Can you talk about that? Or was it really present or whatever?
No, I'll be glad to. We lost Martin April 4th, 1968. And it was automatically assumed that Ralph would take over. It was just assumed. It was just unwritten, unstated, but everyone just assumed because Ralph Abernathy was the closest human being to Martin outside of Coretta Scott King, his wife. Ralph probably could say that he spent probably more time with Martin sometimes than Coretta had spent her own husband, because they were on the road together all the time, in jail together, marching together, strategizing together. So Ralph was obviously the one who was in line to succeed Martin as head of the SCLC, and he did succeed him as the head of the SCLC. But the problem that came about was this young preacher from South Carolina, who was in Chicago, was so dynamic, was so powerful an orator, so charismatic, such a followership, that people tended to cling to every word out of Jessie's mouth and not so much out of Ralph Abernathy's mouth. And that caused a schism between the SCLC and the Operation Breadbasket office in Chicago, which was controlled by the SCLC. That caused a split. Jessie was actually, if I remember correctly, I think Jessie was dismissed from the head of Operation Breadbasket in Chicago by Ralph Abernathy.
Wow.
And so Jesse, of course, pushed, and the Rainbow Coalition, People United to Save Humanity. Now let me point this out. There was disagreement, but I wouldn't call it bitterness, and there was certainly no hatred. Mm-hmm. It was disagreements in lines of which way we should go, how we could go. Jesse loved the boycott concept. Jesse loved boycotts, and he knew the power of a boycott. He had had success in boycotts, and he wanted to continue that from the marches to the boycotts. Let me go back. 1968, Martin Luther King writes a book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. In that book, Martin King describes that the civil rights movement needed to segue from civil rights to economic development. Mm. The Poor People's Campaign, the Poor People's Marches. Martin King was segueing from the civil rights development and situation to dealing with poverty. And of course, he was also against the war in Vietnam, which that kind of came together with Martin, the Poor People's Campaign and the war against Vietnam, which many of us, including this one sitting here, believe that was probably as much as part of the cause of his assassination as anything else that he'd done. Many historians have said that they didn't care about Martin marching. They didn't care about Martin dealing with civil rights. But when Martin started talking about economic development for poor people, that's where the problem came in. And of course, when we start talking about the Vietnam War, that came in too. So there are many historians. In fact, I got a piece by Cornell Wilson we'll play in a little while. People thought that might have caused Martin's assassination. Well, Jesse, with his oratorical splendor, can I call it that way, and his handsomeness and his dynamic personality and charisma, people naturally started gravitating toward Jesse after the death of Martin, and not to the SCLC. Ralph Abernathy, whom I also met, was a beautiful man, a wonderful man of God, a fraternity brother of ours, by the way, a wonderful man of God, a beautiful man. Just if you met Ralph Abernathy, give yourself 5 minutes and you'd be crazy about him. You'd love him. I mean, he was just that type of human being. Loved Martin. He was ready to die with Martin King at any moment, any time. They had faced so many death threats. They had been locked in jail together so many times. I got much love, much love for Ralph Abernathy. So I don't want people to think wrong of him.
Yes.
Just because there were these disagreements on how, and he was not the charismatic person. He was not the charismatic person that Jesse Jackson was. Yeah, he was likable, he was lovable, he was intelligent, all of this, but he didn't have the persona of Jesse. That was the thing that he couldn't overcome. Ralph couldn't overcome that powerful persona that Jesse had. That's just bottom line. That's just it. Jealousy, maybe a little bit, maybe some there, and I'm trying to be careful because I don't want the image of either one of them.
Yeah.
But they couldn't work together, and that's really how Operation Push emerged out of Operation Breadbasket. Almost everybody in Chicago, if I remember correctly, they worked for Jesse in Chicago with Operation Breadbasket. They all resigned. It was like 39 or 40 people resigned from the SCLC to be with Jesse, and he would start this new organization, Push, People United to Save Humanity. So there was a lot of disagreement there. And of course, the SCLC waned in those years. It would never become what it was in the life and time of Martin. Dr. Abernathy, he literally grieved his life away. He never became the same man he was after Martin was assassinated.
Yes. I appreciate you. I know how you are. I know you're watching your words carefully. And I believe that I could probably get where I really want to go with this better by simply, not to shift the conversation to you, but I believe it'll be wrong if I didn't kind of parallel a leader from a leader standpoint, because everyone knows that Jesse was a leader. Anybody that knows you knows that you are considered a leader on that type of level. I want to parallel that movement, because you brought up something powerful about the preachers saying back then, well, essentially saying, listen, we don't want you here. We're going to let the Lord handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to do that. And what we're going to do is just have good church.
Yeah.
We're going to work on Sunday. And when it comes to the everyday walk of the people, things that are affecting them, we'll just let the government kind of handle that, and we'll just if you stay away. I want to ask you, Apostle, because I'm quite sure you've had this problem, and I call it this way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that one of the jealousies when it comes to preachers, and I've kind of seen this as well, maybe not on your level, obviously, but I believe that the preachers have a problem with other leaders that are not only good on Sunday mornings, but they're just as effective on Monday through Saturdays. And I believe that when we start talking about Reverend Jackson, when we start talking about Dr. King, and when I even start talking about you, one thing of being under the ministry for so long, your example, and I'm not talking about Reverend Abernathy or all the old preachers back then, but I believe that is because I bet you get some of the same backlashes that Dr. King got, that Reverend Jackson got. They're saying, why you got to go to this place? Why you have to go to that place? Why do you have to do that? And those usually are the preachers that are just great on, he died on Friday, he got up early Sunday morning, and he lives in me now. But then as soon as the benediction is closed, now we got to go out to this world where politics are involved and where social justice is involved. And there's not a leader that can speak to that. But you have always been one that was just as effective on Sunday morning, and you were just as effective on Monday through Saturday. Can you talk about, I don't want to put nobody in harm. I guess I am, but
no, I got it. I got it.
Talk about the some of the knives that you caught in your back because of jealousies on that note.
Well, again, let me put it this way: if I had $10 for every time a preacher told me, Adkins, why don't you just preach? I probably could buy a Rolls Royce if I had everything. And now let me throw this thing another direction. Can you imagine the Pharisees going to Jesus saying, Jesus, why don't you just preach?
Wow.
Stop all this marching. Stop all this talking about the first will be made last and the last will be made first. Stop telling these poor peasants that they can have life eternal and live more abundantly. Stop telling them those kind of things. Just preach. No, stop, just preach. Why can't you just preach and leave all that other stuff alone?
Yeah. That's a sermon, Doc, whether you know it or not. Go ahead.
So what the Pharisees said to Jesse is the same thing black preachers said to Martin, and to a much smaller degree said to me.
Wow.
And by the way, I'm still hearing it right now.
Yes.
On our mission, December 13th to Mississippi, to Tugwell, Mississippi. We took 2 tractor trailers full of clothing, food, educational items for kids, toys, everything to Mississippi. And yet I had a couple of preachers here in Memphis say, why you got to do that?
Yeah.
What's the point of doing that? In other words, why can't you just preach? Okay, then why did Jesus feed the thousands on the hillside with the lunch from the little boy?
Outside of the synagogue.
Outside of the synagogue. Why did Jesus? So you're going to tell me that you got a problem with me feeding people in the Mississippi Delta, the poorest region in the United States of America? You got a problem with me going down and do that? You got a hang up on that. But Jesus himself knew that if he was to help people, he had to help them not only spiritually, but temporally. They needed to be fed two ways. They needed to be fed spiritually, but they need to be fed physically as well. So we run into this problem everywhere. And through the civil rights struggle, it was a constant thing. It was a constant thing. It was a constant hang up. It was a constant problem. I remember meeting years ago at the Methodist Church on McLemore in Memphis with preachers who were supporting Dr. King. And the question was, how will we deal with all these other preachers in Memphis who are not supporting Dr. King? Can we talk to them? Can we try to reason with them? Can we try to have a meeting with them? And some were very belligerent, extremely belligerent. Those that had bought into and drank the Kool-Aid of Mayor Henry Lowe certainly would not yield to it. Now, the thing that upset me so much was, of course, after Dr. King was assassinated, they all said they supported Dr. King, which was a lie. They did. We hear that still today. This is a theological debate. It's really a theological debate as to how God uses his people still today with what's going on in Washington right now, what we're dealing with in Washington right now, and all of the initiatives that have been cut and taken away from us as we're looking to an administration that wants to take us backwards. With all of these things going on, we still got preachers who won't mention it from their pulpits. They just won't touch it. They won't mention it at all. They won't say anything and criticize those of us who do.
Is that because they're not equipped as far as knowledge? As far as I know that it has to be a part of it. You can't talk about what you don't know about. That's what I'm coming from.
Well, some of it is maybe knowledge, but some of it is fear.
Okay.
Some of it is fear. Sometimes fear is so ingrained in people. I tell a story about Emmett Till for a purpose. When those two white men in Mississippi went to get Emmett Till, the house was in like a neighborhood. People in other homes watched two white men go into that house and pull little Emmett Till out, and all of them peeking out of their windows, and nobody went out to try to help Emmett Till. Now, that kind of thing was just unfathomable to me to understand the fear that existed in some people, I guess in Mississippi at that time, because they did kill Emmett. But that kind of fear is ingrained in a lot of people. And then I agree with you, some of it's knowledge. We got some, I got to choose my words delicately now. We got some that are in the pulpit, but have little knowledge of global affairs, little knowledge of history.
Yes.
Little knowledge of politics or political situations, and don't realize that prophetic preachers, and that's what you're really talking about. You're talking about prophetic preachers, Martin King, Jesse Jackson, Ralph Abernathy, prophetic preachers who not only preach the word of God, but preach condition of God's people, and are concerned about the well-being of God's people at the present moment and present time. Yeah. I'm a prophetic preacher, and it's in my DNA to preach prophetically, meaning it's hard for me to go to the pulpit and not address the things that I see, the things that are hurting my people right now. I can't ignore it. And the theological debate comes, well, one group says God will take care of it. God will do it. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything. Let God handle it. There's an expression in the church that sometimes is used erroneously when it says God will fight our battles for us.
All right.
That's sometimes erroneous because sometimes God wants you to fight the battles.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, sometimes God wants you to fight the battles because he wants you to fight the battle so he can be in the battle with you.
Yeah, you have to participate in it.
You got to participate. So when we want to say so easily, so quickly, God will fight our battles for us. Well, maybe he does. We know he's able, but there's sometimes God wants you to get into the fire, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
There's sometimes God says, look, forget what they're saying. Forget how hot the furnace is. Just get in the fire.
Yeah.
Just get in the fire because I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I won't even let the fire burn your clothes, not less your body.
Yeah.
So this argument goes on and on and on and on. Theologically, preachers, arguments, debates, what we should do. We had whole denominations come together and say we're not going to participate in the civil rights struggle. We had denominations say, leave that to God, leave that to God, leave that to God. But at the same time, prophetic preachers were hearing God saying, go out and do, lead the people, go get the people to stand, to march, stand for what you believe in. God said, the Lord said, who will stand in the gap for me? He didn't say who would sit down and wait on me.
Yeah.
He said, who will stand in the gap for me? So we've got this situation, this argument is going on and on and on, and still to this day, right now, with the sermons that people see of mine and yours, on whether they hear it on the radio station or whether they watch it live or see it later, whatever, they still want to criticize and say, "Now y'all ought to leave that up to God. Y'all ought to leave that up to God."
Why you say that?
Yeah, why you say that? Well, I didn't leave. God led me.
You said, yeah.
God led me to step out. God told Joshua, "Go take Jericho."
Yes.
You would have had preachers saying, "Now let that be the Lord." Now, if the Lord wants us to take Jericho, just wait. God to take it.
Yeah.
But God insisted that you march around Jericho 7. Do what I say.
Participate. Yes.
March around Jericho 7 times and then shout. Now I take a lot about that. Shout.
Yeah.
He said, shout.
Yeah.
And the walls came tumbling down.
Yeah.
So in my prophetic preaching style, I am commanded by God to go and do instead of go and watch. And then I can hear, wait a minute. I hear some preachers talking to me right now. But what about wait on the Lord?
Yeah. They say that.
But what about wait on in time? I heard this when they called me a militant back in school. In the days they said, no, wait, they that wait on the Lord, they shall renew their strength.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a time to wait, but there's a time to march. Yeah. There's a time to run. There's a time to sit down. There's a time to stand up, a time to sit down. There is timing in God.
Faith without works is dead.
Dead. It's dead. So we keep this argument going on because there are those use it as an excuse to not do anything. And let me tell you something. I'm really going to upset some folk here right now, but I've been saying this for years. Too many of us, I'm talking about pastors, talk about praying about something to escape having the responsibility to do something.
Ooh. Listen.
We want to talk about praying for something.
Yeah.
And rather than doing something because we're more comfortable and at ease to just say, pray about something. And I'll leave that at that. They're probably shooting out their computers.
And I don't want to take it there, but once we, no, you good. Once we kind of finish, I want to come back to that and you kind of give us some marching orders. I always call you a general of the faith, and I think that I want to come back to that. There was a video, Apostle. Will you kind of lead us into that? I know you wanted to talk about something that Dr. West did. Just lead us into that. We'll come back.
I have known Cornel West for years. He's been on my radio show when I was doing my radio shows. I used to interview Cornel West and Dick Gregory, James Bevel, Jesse Jackson. When I was at DIA, I interviewed everybody of any note all the time. And I used to love interviewing Cornel West because the man's a genius. He's weird. Yes, Lord, he is a weird human being, but God bless him. He is himself and his mind is brilliant. This man graduated from Harvard with an undergraduate degree, then went to Princeton, got his master's degree at Princeton, Master of Divinity, got his MDiv, then got his doctorate at Princeton, his PhD, then went back to teach at Harvard. The man taught at Yale. The man went back to Princeton. He's one of those intelligent human beings on the earth. And he talked about Jessie. And I thought this would be appropriate that we just look at it and listen to Cornel West for a minute talking about Jessie. Let's go to that if we can.
Get that volume there on it.
Well, we're having a problem. We're having a problem technically. I'm sorry about that. We're having a problem technically with the audio portion. I'll just tell you what he's talking about. Cornell West wrote a book that I think everyone ought to read. As a student of Black history, I read it. It's called Race Matters. Race Matters. A great book written by Cornell West, talking about that's long before Black Lives Matters were ever thought about. Cornell wrote Race Matters, and he's talking about Jesse in the sense that God sometimes sends us prophets to live and dwell amongst us who have a mission and a mission purpose that many on earth cannot understand. Jesse was one of those people. Jesse was maligned because people thought he was hungry for attention. He was hungry for his own personal visibility. He was hungry for all these things, you know. And then, of course, we got to realize this, that every Black civil rights leader came under personal scrutiny and attack regarding their personal lives and their connections or the intimacies or whatever. And that was a strategy designed by J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI, who wanted to search into the lives of every Black leader to try to discredit them by their relationships, their marriages, their affairs outside their marriage, and whatever else. They would use that to try to discredit them. Jesse was no different than others. Martin went through the same thing. Ralph Abernathy went through the same thing. James Bevel, of course, later had many problems. But certainly this was a strategy then, and it is now. And none of us are perfect, and we all have made mistakes. And if you think there was a problem with Jesse and Martin or whomever because of any discrepancies in their personal life, you need to go back and remember that Noah was an alcoholic, a drunkard. You need to remember back then that David was not only a murderer, but an adulterer. You need to remember that. And God said he is a man after my own heart. You need to remember that Jeremiah was a coward who ran away from his ministry, but until the fire burned in his bones so badly that he couldn't stop, he had to preach again. You got to realize that Paul was indeed a persecutor, a killer, a murderer, as Saul, of people who believed in God before he had his Damascus Road experience. Well, what I'm trying to point out is that men and women of God are still human beings, and they may have flaws, they may have situations and issues, but that does not stop God from using them. If God can use old drunk Noah, if God can use old murderous David, who was a man after his own heart, don't come to me talking to me about what indiscrepancies of anyone else that you found. That does not stop God from using that. In fact, let me just say this. Ananias, and when Paul heard the Lord knock from his beast on that road to Damascus, and when Paul was put under the tutelage of Ananias, Ananias had to question, God, why would you call this murderer? Why would you call this murderer and then have me to teach and mentor and teach him? Why would you use me?
Yeah.
Look how righteous I have been. Look how obedient I have been. Why not me, Lord? Why would you use him instead of me? So that question has come about ad nauseum, for the simple reason that people cannot understand sometimes how God operates. God does not always operate through good people.
There you go. But the book is loaded with bad folks doing great work.
Full of bad folk that God picked out of nowhere. God even commanded Nicodemus to do something good.
Yes.
It's a fact that God uses whom he chooses to use. And when we are forced to try to look into people's personal lives, their marriages, their relationships outside them, all these kinds of things are meant to discredit so we would stop following them. That was the whole idea. And unfortunately, we have some of our own people who buy into that. They drink that Kool-Aid. They drink it because they want to hear it. They love gossip. And they want to jump into that. And they want to say, yeah. See that? I ain't going to follow that Martin King because they say he got a woman. No, look.
Yeah.
We have to wake up and understand. John Kennedy, the greatest president of my lifetime and generation, was wounded by Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
who at that time in the 50s and 60s was the blonde bombshell of moving pictures.
Yeah.
And then he married Jacqueline Onassis, but they never let him forget Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone to try to point out your personal discrepancies to deny your anointing, to deny the anointing that God put on you. They're going to try to tear you down to also tear down that anointing. And I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I need all of you to take a little pause right here real quick. We're getting ready to close it out in a minute, but we got just one more item to discuss that I want to draw from this well. That is, of course, Dr. Bill Adkins, and want to add something myself to it. Listen, I need everybody, wherever you're watching from, hit that like button. Everybody, hit that like button. Just smash it about 20 times. We're trying to go ahead and upset the algorithm tonight. Hit that like button. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button. If you're on YouTube, hit that heart button. Do it. Just smash it over and over again. Let us know that if we're doing okay tonight. Let us know that you're enjoying the Up My People podcast. As we're trying to help somebody. Hopefully, so far, you have gained just something, whether it was from myself or whether it's from Pastor Adkins here, to let us know exactly that you're enjoying this real quick. And while you're at it, if you're not following and subscribing from either place, do it right now while we are talking. Hit that subscribe button. We're on a serious march to over 1,000 subscribers on pages right now. We really want you to do that. And we'll come at the end and show you exactly again where you're going, where you can follow us at. I want to close out tonight. Thank you all for doing it. Let everybody know that we're here. We're going to be here. We're committed to this. And this is going to be an amazing work because God put it in both of our hearts. I want to talk about now. I alluded earlier, Pastor Adkins, that Martin King passed. And then it seems that God elevated Rev. Jackson to that next level. But now Rev. Jackson is gone. And the work is still here. And the world is changing. I don't know if the intensity of the fire that obviously that our leaders had back then is still prevalent now. I think it's there, but I don't think it's only just it's the numbers. I don't think are there as it was back then. Back in the mid 70s all the way up. But now it does not have to be a preacher that can stand in the gap and lead. That's just not the way of the world now. But however, the work has to be done. And my question tonight to you, Pastor Adkins, is, how do we improve? What do we have to do for those that have the zeal or the fire to do it, but are not totally equipped? How do the next generation of leaders become equipped so that they can stand and even speak on a level where they're respected? Well, I don't know if that really matters. Well, they're effective, I guess, in trying to push the message, God's message of taking care of people. what do we do now? I got my idea, and I just throw this out. I'm quite sure you ready to rock already, but I remember you telling me, and I'll let everybody kind of in on a couple conversations over the years while I was riding with Apostle Adkins, and he's one of the men that I have, that I will bow down and listen to him, because I respect him as my pastor, but I also respect him as a man and also as a friend. I don't know if a friend a good word, because I almost look at him as he's my second daddy almost. But this is one of the conversations that he had with me. He told me this years ago. Something so short but so powerful. He knows I'm a sports guy. And I guess he was kind of getting trained in me, because I don't know what God done told him about me. But I can sense something different. He knows I'm a sports guy. And if you tell me to start talking about the Cowboys and football as a whole and basketball and all that, I could talk for 10 hours. But he told me this in his car. We were riding, and he told me this. He said, Brooks, you got to stop watching ESPN so much, and you need to flip the channel to CNN and Fox and even watch world news. That's what he told me. And in his own way, he was teaching me about this part. The second thing that he taught me by example, most of all, and also by word, was that you preach good. That's what I'm telling you, what he told me. He told me, you preach real good. But what are you doing on Monday through Saturday? So I guess that's as I'm quite sure some preachers in here, and some are going to be looking afterwards. I say it for everybody, but let me just, in the arena, because every preacher has a platform and a microphone, and everyone has a little power when it comes to that. How do we improve as pastors and preachers for the Monday through Saturday, like Jesse Jackson did, and like you did, and like Dr. King did? How do we improve our Monday through Saturday ministry?
Well, you get me in trouble again.
I'm sorry.
You get me in trouble again. There's a difference between a preacher and a pastor.
Uh-oh.
There's a difference between a preacher and a pastor. And I'm not putting down either one. Peter was a great preacher. Paul was a great pastor. The preacher, with his dynamic ability to preach and to excite the hearts of people, is one of God's greatest tools. But there are oftentimes preachers who don't want to do nothing but preach. Now, to pastor means you got to care about the condition and situation of people Monday through Sunday, through the next Sunday, Monday through Saturday, let's say. You got to be concerned about them. What are you going to do about them, your ministry? What is your ministry doing? Are we just assembling on Sunday, or are we doing anything Monday through Saturday to help God's people? That's when pastoring comes into a great extent. And again, I'm not putting people down. It's just whatever is in your calling that you do. But certainly that has been the situation for so long in that area. You asked the question about leadership and coming up tomorrow. Do you remember Miss Jane Pittman? Do you remember the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman?
Yes, sir.
It was on TV years and years ago. If you haven't seen it, see it. But I'm going to bring up a point that she made. As an old black woman at the turn of the 19th century, from 1800s to the 1900s, every time Jane Pittman would see a young black man who could speak or preach or teach, she would go ask him this question: is you the one? That's what she would say. Is you the one? She knew God was going to send a leader to people of color to bring us out of our civil rights disparity to our civil rights haven, so to speak. She knew that. And when she found young boys primarily, she would ask the question, is you the one? And grammatically, we know that's wrong grammatically, but this is This is her verbiage, and this was her question. Well, when you talked about leaders, a leader's going to come. I'm not. I don't know if I'm speaking prophetically or not. Sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I don't know when I'm speaking prophetically. Listen to me. I don't know sometimes when I'm doing it, but when something just jumps in my head, it comes and jumps out of my mouth. We talk about leaders of the future. There are many great leaders I see out there right now that can take us on from my generation, the baby boomers, your generation, the millennials, and all these other generations. We have some great leaders coming up. I wouldn't go do this tonight, but I'm going to tell you about somebody that I think every African American will be paying attention to. It's a young man that I have watched and observed that I think we need to watch together. His name is Wes Moore.
Okay. Yes.
Wes Moore.
Yes.
He is the governor of the state of Maryland.
Yes.
He is a Army veteran, a captain, parachute, special forces guy who served in Afghanistan. Not like the current president who had bone spurs in his feet so he couldn't serve. But here's a young black man, highly educated, highly qualified. If you've never heard
great orator.
If you never watched him, you're missing out. Again, I don't know if I'm speaking prophetically now or not. There he is right there. Black America, pay attention to this young man. Pay attention to this young man. He has everything that you would want. I'll say it, in a president.
Ah, goodness.
He has everything that you would want in a president. Proven leader, risked his life for his country, scholar, brilliant man, lovely wife, lovely home life, elected governor of a southern state. Maryland is still a southern state, whether y'all know it or not. Elected governor of a southern state. This man is dynamic. And I'm just going to throw him out there. That's just one of the many that I see out there that we ought to look at and say, we ought to say, is you the one?
Yes.
Is you the one? Pay attention to us more, and I'll close out on that vision.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's going to close us out on tonight. Certainly, this has been, personally speaking for myself, this has been just awesome for me, just to sit with this man and just listen to him, and I tag in a little bit here and there on tonight. It's just great, and to see everybody that's here that joined in on the chat. We want to thank you for this first official show of the Up My People podcast. We're going to keep it going. Stay tuned. Turn on those notifications, please. For again, if you're looking for it on YouTube, it's Up My People podcast. We need some more subscribers. Go there. If you're watching on whatever channel you're watching this on, if you have not subscribed to this, please go immediately following this. Go to the Up My People podcast on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and you can do that. If you're on Facebook, will you please go to Up My People podcast on Facebook? Just search the page. You'll see our picture there. Please follow that channel as well. And then we also are on a podcasting network, which is called Podbean. We are there live right now. We are live there right now. Go to Podbean. It's an app you can actually put on your phone. Podbean, search out Up My People podcast. You'll see our picture there. Follow that show as well. That way, when you're in your car, if we don't want you watching us. Excuse me. We don't want you watching us while you're driving, but you can put it on your car while you're listening. You'll hear the audio version of this, what we just talked about on tonight and for the future as well. Again, this has been a blessing. We thank all of you for hanging with us on tonight. It's going to get better. We'll have an intro for you next time. Hopefully, we'll have different things. We'll talk about all type of topics in the church, outside of the church. We'll talk about Washington, D.C. It's no telling what we're going to talk about, but whatever it is, it's going to be a blessing to the people of God, because guess what? We are concerned about your Monday through Saturdays.
Amen.
We're preaching on Sundays now. We are preaching. Oh, you're not going to look. I look. There's a great pastor, great preacher that we have here. Some of you know me. However way you feel about me, we're preaching on Sundays, but we are concerned about Monday through Saturdays. It makes no sense to shout and then go to the parking lot and just start cussing yourself out because you got to worry about your Monday through Saturdays. We want you to be uplifted Monday through Saturday. That's what Jesse Jackson did. Yeah. That's why he had that positive attitude. That's what Dr. King did. And just judging by looking at this man that was with me tonight, he's concerned about Monday through Saturdays. I've seen him Monday through Saturdays. Same fire, same passion, Monday through Saturday. That's how we can up our people, because we can uplift our mental and our mental mindset to greater levels. We're concerned, and we're going to do something about it, because faith without works is dead. We're trying to do our best to uplift the people of God. Until next time, everyone, we appreciate you. Apostle, was it for tonight?
That's it. Thank you so much. Thank all of you for tuning in tonight. And like, tell everybody else, if you didn't see it tonight live, it's recorded on YouTube. Go to Up My People Podcast on YouTube, and you can watch this program in its entirety.
Until next time, we'll see you. God bless you on tonight. Remember, Up My People.